Hello, today I'm going to talk to you about the most broken comp on the TFT ladder right now, the Forgotten 6 Vayne comp. Even pro players are spamming it. C9 Soju has 10 out of his last 20 games played with it. It's absolutely insane. You don't even need Vayne 3 to make it successful. So this is going to be a great showcase of a game that I actually played it with the perfect items. We did not even manage to hit first because there was another Vayne player that hit Vayne 3, which was insane, but we easily top 4'd with it. And today I'm going to show you how to actually abuse this comp. You only have a few days left because it's going to get nerfed. Sacrificial Gauntlet is only working as of now. As soon as Wednesday, it's going to be out. If you want more details on what is coming in patch 11.10 on Wednesday, you just have to go in the description down below. I already have a video on it. Now let's get into the meat of this comp. Right now you can see that I'm just playing basic early game. You don't need to force it as soon as the early levels. You can just go regular, good frontline, good backline, and it's gonna be fine. Obviously, as soon as you hit some Vaynes or some Forgotten, you want to put them on your board. So you can look for a Warwick, you can look for a Gragas to have that brawler start, and then you can go brawler ranger, or you can simply go with a Dawnbringer start with Gragas and Kha'Zix like I did. The goal usually is you want to lose streak at the start. Sometimes it's not going to be obvious because if you're a good TFT player, you won't force the comp every single game. You're going to see if you have the items for it, which is very crucial. You need Sacrificial Gauntlet, the Shadow Zeeks, and Runons. Those are the 3 best in slot items for Vayne right now. Runons to actually murder any frontline. It's just gonna help a ton with your damage. The Sacrificial Gauntlet has a busted interaction right now with Vayne, so basically she just never gets hurt and gets all the bonuses, so it's just a better Jewel Gauntlet. If you cannot hit the Shadow one, Jewel Gauntlet is okay, but it's not as good, especially with the Forgotten buff that just boosts your team based on the Shadow items that you have. And obviously, if you can hit the Shadow Zeeks, this is absolutely massive. It's the best item right now. You want the attack speed burst right as the round starts. It's what actually matters. You really want to get that up front. If you cannot hit those items, I mean, Ginsu is fine. The person that's going to win this lobby actually won with a Ginsu Vayne. It's not a trash item per se, but usually you want the damage all up front if you can. You need to keep in mind that you don't have to force this comp every single game because it's very item reliant. Usually you want to pick the shadow items that will make the components for the last shadow best in slot we just mentioned, and then from there you can actually look into forcing the comp. You don't even need Vayne 3, like I said. As soon as you hit Vayne 2 with good items, you're basically free top 4. It's the only thing you need. It's that good. Vayne 2 is only what's required, and obviously you want to level 2 all your units, which is going to be most of the time Warwick, Hecarim, Katarina, Thresh, and then you can eventually go for the Rise, for the Viego, any single Forgotten, and obviously Victor, which is going to round up your first 6. While you transition to Forgotten 6, you will actually play either Ranger, so you can get the attack speed buff on your Vayne, or you can simply slam as many Forgotten as you want. Usually that works. You can also go for the Brawler frontline like we mentioned. You can go for the Knight frontline to go with the Thresh. There's a lot of options. You need to be flexible. You need to just go with whatever you're being given, whatever you roll, and then you just go with it and you just try to protect the Vayne. At all costs, you need to protect the Vayne. It's the only big source of damage in your comp, so you will have to do everything in your power to protect it. So now let's dive deep into this game. As you can see, we have a normal Dawnbringer Renewer start. It's not the best start ever, but our HP is pretty good, so we're going to be in good shape. As soon as we hit the BF sword there, I know that I'm going to be in a good shape to actually go Vayne. We already see on my bench I can do the Runons and I can do the Sacrificial Gauntlet. We already have a belt and we have a BF sword, which means that I can get the shadow component for basically any of the 2 to get the Shadow Zeeks. At this point, I think I was strong enough to just force it anyways because we can go regular Zeeks on whatever unit's gonna stand beside the Vayne, so it's already gonna be decent. And as soon as you hit Vayne 2, which is probably your priority once you get to around 3-2, around level 5, it's where you really want your Vayne to hit 2, and then you're basically good. As you can see in this game, the guy actually hit Vayne 3 on 3-2. This is absolutely insane. if you're not contested and you can go for it, that's easy top 4, if not first place. It's that good. So right now you can see that Vayne is not doing a whole lot, but you have to remember that Vayne is level 1 right now. We're just stacking up the Forgotten, and as soon as we're gonna hit Vayne 2, you'll see how drastically the comp changes. It is a pretty normal early game. We lost a lot of HP, which is not ideal. We probably lost a bit too much than was intended, but right now you can see how strong the actual Vayne comp of the other guy is. It's busted. He has Ginsu Runons, so he doesn't have any of the 2 shadow items we mentioned, but he doesn't need it right now because he's hit Vayne 3. So at this point, he's already set to go. Now, as soon as the second carousel comes, we can get the shadow belt, which is going to give us the shadow Zeeks. And at this point, you can already see like how strong we're going to get, because we're going to level up. We're going to change our board to have like a lot of Forgottens. We have the Brawler start, and unfortunately we don't hit Vayne 2 like right now, but she's already going to do like a lot of damage. You'll be able to see with the Shadow Zeeks, like her attack speed just goes basically through the roof. And at that point in the game, we already have 3 rounds that were lost, so we're gonna take like a great loss right now. Ideally you want to keep the streak you're going on without losing too much HP, and that was almost like a perfect loss. We only lost 1 HP. That's much better than actually like winning this round, especially since the PvE round is coming on. We hopefully can keep the streak going until then, but obviously as soon as like the 4th round comes, you know, the 4-1, 4-2, you really need to stabilize, because at that point, if you keep losing, you're just gonna lose the game. You know, you won't have time to actually like ramp up and be decent. So in this case, we keep our lose streak going all the way through the PvE round, which is fine, because as you can see, we're already getting quite strong. We've lost like the last 2 rounds, but we managed to basically save a lot of HP by actually leveling some units, and we're fine. We probably lost a bit too much HP. It's not the perfect scenario, but this is a great example of why the comp is busted. That start was not insane. Like, we were lucky we've hit like the best in slot items, but overall the early game was not as good as it could have been. It could have been like a lot and a lot better. But as soon as you can slam in 6 Forgotten, as soon as you get to level 6, that's your priority. Unfortunately here, I just was not fast enough to get the spatula, but don't worry, we're gonna build a Force of Nature, and we'll have basically the comeback of our life. So just look at the Vayne right now. She as long as she can like stand still behind and just free DPS, you're good to go. That's why you really need some frontline items that I'm going to get into that just a bit later. But right now we've built the Force of Nature, which is just a broken item, obviously. I don't need to tell you guys that. It's just the best item in the game, probably, because you can get another unit. So now we're level 6, and we have 6 Forgotten and 2 Rangers. So at this point in the game, we are in a good spot. Now you need to look for what items can you build on the rest of your team. Right now I went for a Morello on Katarina. There's a lot of like life stealer in the game, so I think that was very useful to go with the Morello. If I would have been able, I would have went Frozen Heart, because that's really good. It would have really helped against this comp, the other Vayne comp. Having Frozen Heart will really slow her down. So if you can go for that, it's going to be absolutely great. It's great on Viego, it's great on Katarina. Basically anyone that has access to the backline can carry a Frozen Heart. It's really good. Even though it's going to get nerfed for Wednesday, it's still going to be decent. This is what you're looking for. Now that you get into like the late game, you can be a bit more flexible. You do not need to go for the Forgotten 9. It's not required at all. You just want more frontline at this point. That's why we went with the Sejuani to get the Cavalier buff. That's gonna help our Hecarim, which is a very decent tank in this comp. If you can slam some like early defensive items on him, it's going to be really useful. If you can get something like a Sunfire Cape or a Warmog, it's going to help your frontline by a lot. And I'm repeating myself right now, but you need a good frontline. Your Vayne is gonna get one-shotted by almost like everything. That's the difference between having a 2-star 1-cost instead of like the 2-star 4-cost carry like a Phalios, which is absolutely tanky because of Nightbringer, but also because he's a 4-cost, so his values are a bit higher than the Vayne, which you need to remember is very, very squishy. So you need to do everything in your power to not get her melted, basically. That means that you will have to focus a lot on positioning, a lot on scouting. When you play this comp, you cannot afford to have your Vayne being slammed by assassins, especially since assassins are going to be probably a lot more popular coming this Wednesday with the Nocturne bug fix, aka Nocturne buff. Is going to be really strong, so you'll have to watch out for that. You need to position your Vayne always on the same side as the Vel'Koz player. Right now is a good example of where you need to be positioned. Unfortunately, we don't win this round, but it doesn't matter. We would have been absolutely obliterated if we were on the other side. At least now she can get a bit of DPS in. She can basically save some HP at that point, and you're pretty much set to go. So you really want to look for Vel'Koz player. You need to be on the same side as him. You need to look for Viegos and assassin players. Hopefully your clutter of like carries, which is the Vayne with the 2 units that's going to be standing on the side, you want them on the other side. Make sure she doesn't get hit by that. And here is another great example of like Vayne free firing the Vel'Koz, and by dodging that, we actually like get a placement over this guy because we killed him. So it's really, really crucial. I cannot overstate how positioning is mandatory with this comp. Obviously, it's a skill that is very useful in any TFT comp. It's always useful. You need to use that. But with this one, it's even more required. Now that the late game is getting closer, you want to look for transitioning your weak unit into better ones. That means that you're going to look to transition your Warwick out and probably put a Ryzen. You're going to transition either your Katarina or another unit, and you can pair Katarina with Viego. Actually, now that I think about it, you just swap the Victor, not Katarina. You swap the Victor, you put Viego in, and now you still have the Forgotten 6 buff. And you can go with the Ironclad Cavalier. I'm able to do that on level 8 because I have the Force of Nature. Remember, Rel is just a fantastic unit, so every time you can like plug her into a comp, you obviously do it because she's super good. This is a good example once again of like Vel'Koz positioning. We managed to kill just a few units with that. He could not like finish everyone before she could do some damage, so this is crucial. We managed to be able to like survive with only 2 HP, which is insane. Like 2 HP is not a whole lot. That means that every single round that I would have mispositioned against the Vel'Koz, I was basically dead right there. Now that assured me top 4. So is this the best example of what you can do with Vayne in any circumstances? No, absolutely not. It's just to show you that even though you're not playing perfectly, you're not hitting Vayne 3, you're not getting the insane early game, you can still top 4 like pretty easily. There was nothing fancy going on there. Now that our positioning is gone, basically we top 4'd, we pieced out, I wanted to see how far the other Vayne guy could go. And you can see here the power of Sacrificial Gauntlet, again, of Vayne 3. He's absolutely murdering anyone. And you can see he did the same thing as me, which is basically put another Zeus on any unit that is beside your Vayne. In this case, he went with Ashe, which is a perfectly decent option. You can go Kindred for the other Ranger. That's going to help. She's going to help your carry survive with her ultimate. There is a lot of options. You need to be flexible depending on your lobby. So you can go and splash in some Mystics with the Kindred and then another Mystic, which is going to be your Rise usually. You can go with the Ranger Ashe, which is going to help with CC. You need to keep in mind all of these options is absolutely crucial. Now, this is a good example of like him losing because he did not position his Vayne correctly. This is a good example of like Vel'Koz just basically murdering the entirety of his team because he did not bother to like position himself correctly. And now you're gonna see what happens if he simply moves his units to the other side. It's not that complicated. He's simply gonna move his like carry clutter to the left instead of the right, and that allows him to dodge the Vel'Koz. And the other guy was not watching, he was not paying any attention to his positioning could not counter it. And this is the difference between first place and like top 4 usually, guys. I'm not kidding. It is absolutely crucial. So now you can see him. He's gonna go for the win just because of that. The Kindred coming in clutch. Vayne is absolutely DPSing like crazy, and that is a first place with the perfect example of positioning. It is mandatory. You need to be on the same side of the veil cause. It's the most important thing you can do. And I hope you enjoyed this video. Vayne is absolutely busted right now. You need to try it in your games, and I'll see you next time.